Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Speaker.
Morning.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to report on the government procurement methods and the Ministry of Public Works initiative to improve this process by reducing the excessive amounts of unnecessary bureaucracy and minutiae that local businesses have to endure when placing bids on government contracts. Mr. Speaker, in 2017, this administration pledged to increase efficiency within government and decrease the response time, a pledge I intend to keep. Mr. Speaker, and honourable members of this House are familiar with how often government is required to obtain goods and services from external sources in order to fulfill the needs that cannot be met by government alone. Specific to this ministry, be that specialty services in trenching, excavation, mold remediation, asphalting, landscaping, architecture, mechanical engineering, building maintenance, among others, too numerous to mention, but equally as important to ensure that public infrastructure is maintained at an adequate level. Now, to be clear, Mr. Speaker, this administration understands the necessity in protecting the public purse and ensuring value for money when attempting to acquire goods and services from external entities, which is why this PLP administration implemented the Code of Practice for Project Management and Procurement in 2018 upon our return to government. Mr. Speaker, the Code outlines how public officers procure goods and/or services on behalf of government departments, offices, and public authorities in accordance with their dollar threshold and procurement method from the initial request through the closing of an activity. Since implementation, I am sure that the Ministry of Public Works is not the only government entity which has received feedback from technical officers and companies in the private sector stating that the new method to place a bid on government contracts is too burdensome and enveloped in excessive amounts of unnecessary paperwork. Because of this, Mr. Speaker, over the years, the Ministry of Public Works has seen a decrease in the number of local companies applying for government contracts. As one, it costs money to place a bid on a contract through research and/or administrative time and personnel in order to compile the relevant documentation. And two, it takes time for the technical officers to delve into the submissions to ensure the government is receiving the best value. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, and I have to chuckle at bureaucracy at its best, some of the documents that companies have to produce in order to bid on government contracts consist of the same information over and over again. For example, if a company applies for two contracts at the same time, the company would be required to give its business information twice, i.e., the name of the company, its address, payroll tax ID, social insurance ID, etc., which is standard information that does not change often. If the company accidentally omits information from one of the bids, that company may be disqualified even though they submitted the required information on the other. Is this fair? I think not, especially when the information is literally identical. Mr. Speaker, simply to enlighten the listening public, the approximate time frame for awarding contracts can range from 5 weeks to 13 weeks or more. This wide-ranging variation in response time is deemed unsatisfactory by the ministry and those local companies, especially small to medium-sized businesses, who intend to operate on a monthly basis. Again, this is unfair as some small to medium-sized businesses may not have the capacity to hire additional administrative staff to keep on top of government contracts and procurement notices, even though they have the technical ability and resources to complete the tasks required. Mr. Speaker, for these reasons, the Ministry of Public Works is now launching a pilot program known as the Vendor Prequalification Program for the upcoming fiscal year, that being 2023 to 24. This pre-qualification program is designed to reduce the paperwork and red tape and accelerate the response time for small to medium-sized business owners looking to bid on government contracts. The pre-qualification will identify contractors qualified to supply goods or services to government. How this works, the company can apply by filling in the required paperwork only once, and upon review by technical officers, the company will be pre-qualified with the ministry and able to place bids on public works contracts for the entire fiscal year. Mr. Speaker, for this program, the ministry has identified 32 different services in which there may be a necessity in the next fiscal year. The application for this program and the list of categories were tabled this morning or can be found on the government procurement website. Mr. Speaker, it is anticipated that with this new procurement method, an expeditious bid submission and review process can take place for government contracts, which will reduce the aforementioned time frame from 13 weeks to a minimum of 21 days. While the ministry cannot guarantee that a pre-qualified vendor will ultimately win a bid for a contract, Mr. Speaker, we can assure that those approved vendors who meet the pre-qualification criteria will benefit from a faster and far less complex procurement process. Since the announcement of this program and release of the pre-qualification application several weeks ago on the government procurement site, the ministry has hosted a number of information sessions in which representatives of 21 companies have learned more and received assistance in filling out forms for this program. I would like to emphasize that these information sessions are voluntary as a means for the ministry to give small and medium-sized businesses increased opportunity to secure work that will sustain them in the long term. Mr. Speaker, members of this Honorable House and the listening public, if you or someone you know owns a business and fits in one or more of the categories listed on the government procurement site, I encourage all companies, especially small to medium-sized business owners, to consider signing up for this pre-qualification program and to not miss out on their chance to be awarded a government contract. The first application process opens Tuesday, February 7th, 2023, but more importantly, the application process is open all year, and I encourage all companies to participate in this program. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.